So basically what we talked about is a sequence diagram. Basically, the
Yeah.
sequence diagram designed to show user, stakeholder, technical team how to processing a message will happening in a time-oriented manner where the player. So it is basically for the messaging service. Any email, any notification, or anything, whether it will going to happening in a synchronized manner or asynchronized manner, right?
Yeah.
Asynchronized, we talked about that. Asynchronized means it will not going to connect immediately, but
Yeah.
it will be sent at period of a time, asynchronous manner. So whatever the process will be continue synchronized manner, that it will going to send some message and it will going to wait for the feedback, then it
Yeah.
will move forward with the process. So asynchronous communication is really, really huge impactable in some of the application, because whenever you are doing a single processing application, developing a single processing application, and you are doing some kind of microservice communication or any cross-platform communication with some other applications, at that time you are sending something, any kind of data or any message or anything, that is also called messaging.
Yeah.
Whatever the exchange of any sort of message, right, that is called communication. So because of that, what's going on, uh, that your process has to wait for the acknowledgement, because it is not like that sending a message and then goodbye. Computer system always work with sending and acknowledge.
Yeah.
The acknowledgement will receive any sort of, so acknowledgement, it will going to wait in a synchronized manner. But most of the architecture will going to like asynchronous manner communication, because you send something and you are carry forward with your process, so your process
Yeah.
will be not going to block.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have to suffer with some of the services, right? It will be delay in the process or something like
Yeah.
that, right? uh, the next one is activity diagram. So activity diagram are similar to flowchart diagram.
Yeah.
Describe the sequencing functionalities, action, choices, system logic, like state chart diagram. Right?
Yeah.
It indicate the large block of dot, horizontal block, lines indication where the object may take one of the several different paths at action. Activity diagram are especially useful for objects which contain a lot of complex logic that you wish to clearly present. So, whatever we are discussing, it is not mandatory to have all these kind of different kind of diagram in every project. These are the
Yeah.
option. These are the option. You can choose
Right.
anything, right? So, depending on the architect, how he want to represent. Most of the time, people go with flowchart is essential, because
Yeah.
with flowchart you will going to simplify the process, and it will going to hit lots of uh, objectives, whatever you want to show with object activity diagram or sequence diagram or something. So it will
Yeah.
going to cover all those things. So people will going to follow that thing. The only difference is in activity diagram and flowchart. Flowchart, you will going to you have a oval shape of start node and end node, right?
Yeah.
Over here we have a dot. that is an
Right.
initial node, and rest of the thing I think it's probably similar.
Yeah.
You can check it out, and at the end of the node, there is a kind of a crossing, railway crossing kind of a sign that is a final node
Okay.
for
So
activity.
when it starts, it's a dot, and when it ends, it's a cross.
That's cross, and cross is for the termination of a flow. Whatever you are doing, that is a termination, and the end is another dot and the circle, dot and the circle.
Okay. Okay.
If you are forking the process with the multiple thing, rather than dividing a arrow right away, you will going to use a horizontal bar, and then you will break it down with two other arrows.
Okay.
That's how you fork it. Joining is also similar. You have multiple arrow coming as a process. You have a horizontal bar, and you will going to merge it into a single
Okay. Yeah.
arrow. In activity diagram, you can use partially called swim lane to focus or represent actors performing activities. We didn't talk about swim lane. What is swim lane?
Swim lane, I don't know.
So swim lane is we can be say that it's a kind of activity diagram, but
But
it is
it is
focusing on
focus.
only one thing. Right? I'm hearing activity. So specific role. So suppose if we talk about some specific role, it will going to cover only that thing. So suppose a customer. So customer process flow or activity associated with that. So in activity diagram, you can represent this is a customer activity, right?
Yeah.
This is sales department activity. This is marketing department activity. This is HR department activity. That sort of stuff.
Okay.
Suppose if we talk about a banking system where I want to open a bank account, nowadays everything is online. So I request for opening a bank account, and then somebody from uh, banker will going to see that request,
Yeah.
verify my document, verify my legitimacy, and then he will going to contact me, right?
Yeah.
So in this entire activity, there are some process associated with customer as a bank's new customer myself, and some process are associated with the banker, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he has to take some certain activity. I have to do some certain activity. From my request, he will going to start working on something,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
similarly, you can represent in an activity diagram. You can clarify this is the customer process, this is the banker process with
Okay.
horizontal bar, right? You are going to
Yeah.
write vertically, right? This is a start node, this is some activity, logging, request, raising request, entering the detail, social security, all those things, blah, blah, blah. And then the process will go to on the court of banker. So you can define this is the customer activity in a horizontal bar, what, right?
Yeah.
And you can write this is the banker activity. So it will
Right.
going to clarify, who is the actor of the system, right? There are some
Yeah.
actors of the system who is working
Yeah.
some certain. Nowadays, not only just a person would be an actor of a system, but it can be a machine as well,
Yeah.
right? If we talk about AI system, there are some. decision to make from the system side. So AI will going to take a decision, correct?
Yeah.
Swim lane diagram is used to show the interaction between a different actor and system. It keeps focus on high level activities and who performs them. It is ideal for working with stakeholder because it is very simple and easy to understand. So stakeholder will not going to understand who is doing what.
Yeah.
You're going to show the flowchart diagram. You can also include in flowchart as well. And this part of process is basically associated with the customer. This part of process is associated with banker, like with
Yeah.
horizontal lines. Because activity diagram and flowchart are like cousins, I would say.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the next one, use case diagram. This is very important. Use case diagram represent a graphical overview of the functionality provided by the system, terms of actor, their goals represented as a cases. You must have used it. Have you used it? Use case
Yeah.
diagram.
I used it once, but I don't remember it quite well.
Mm.
Like, not clearly.
So in use case diagram, there are some actors, actor representation of a person, like a graphical representation of customer, graphical representation of banker, something.
Yeah.
So once you apply, then you will going to create a case, apply for the application for the
Exactly.
opening the account.
Account.
Then there is another actor on the another side. You will going to create, just like you are creating a boy, small
Yeah. Yeah.
person, right? Then there is some action has to take from the banker side.
Yeah.
So the purpose of use case diagram is how functionality work, any functionality, any requirement you had, it will going to break down into functionality,
Yeah.
and all the cases you will going to check over there. If a customer don't have social security, so banker will going to ask whether you have TIN number, tax ID number, right, or something else. So
Yeah.
there are a process you have to follow and represent all the cases associated with the functionality.
Yeah.
What can be expected? How a user or any actor will going to behave or work in some certain cases. That is the purpose of it. We can say this is kind of a behavioral diagram as well, use case diagram. So, what would be the behavior of all the actors associated with the process when any system will going to arise, right?
Yeah.
You have to refer everything, huh? Whenever you
Yeah.
are
About the diagram, right?
completing.
All the diagram.
In use case diagram, these are the components: actors, use cases, relationship, and the boundary box.
Yeah.
And in use cases documentation, you will going to use use case name, use case description, define actor. So you have to define this thing as a document. The diagram will be there, right? But you will going to write a little bit of description over there. Who is what,
Yeah.
customer is what, define customer, who can be customer, who is banker, define banker.
Yeah.
So anybody can understand, associated with the process or not have a technical background. So there is
Right.
a technical people, right? They don't
Yeah.
understand the functionality. They don't understand who is banker. They don't know definition of the banker. So they will going to ask, right? Who is this actor? Can you define who is the banker? So all the technical people, UI UX developer or
Yeah.
or database developer or backend developer, they don't know,
Great.
right? The define actor, create a use case basic flow, create alternate flow. What would be the alternate flow? If there is a something else will going to happen, what if kind of condition.
Yeah.
Special requirement, precondition, what happen when the use cases end, something like that. So you have to represent everything. The book, there is a lot of description, but it is not that much. Whatever I have explained to you, you can understand that.
No worries.
I'm not able to hear your voice properly.
So when you asked me what use case was, I searched it on Google, and when I saw the picture, I remembered what it was. Because as I said, I did it earlier as well, so it
Yeah,
was
it's a
just relevant to
basic
see.
stuff. If you have background of computer, then it's very very basic stuff. I think that is it then. Let's discuss the last topic.
We just need to focus on use case, activity sequence, and swim lane. And swim lane and activity is almost same.
Yes. No, activity diagram and flow chart are same.
Okay.
Swim lane is basically you will going to define all the representation of users and define at the activity level who is doing what,
Yeah.
right? Basically, you don't need to do activity diagram separately. You can merge it into your uh, not activity. You can merge your swim lane diagram into activity.
Okay.
So tools we already discussed, but still, MS Visio and
I used Lucid Chart
Lucid
last time
Chart,
on
right,
Friday.
right, right. So these are the tools we have. This is the end